Takemichi was lying around and snacking when he heard on the news that a conflict within the Tokyo Manji gang had resulted in civilian casualties, including Naoto Tachibana and Hinata Tachibana. This news surprised him because Hinata was his only girlfriend in middle school. An annoyed neighbor knocked on his door, complaining about the loud TV, and Takemichi apologized once again. At work, his manager scolded him for not returning a DVD to the shelves despite numerous reminders. On his way home, he encountered some kids who decided to mess with him by scratching a car, and then ran away, leaving Takemichi to take the blame. He lamented how he had to apologize for everything, and was still a virgin. While waiting at the train station, someone pushed him onto the tracks, just as the train was approaching. In the moments before impact, he remembered Hinata. Takemichi suddenly found himself back in the second year of middle school, reliving the time when he had the best life and even had a girlfriend. His old school friends called out to him, urging him to leave the train. As Takemichi looks into a mirror, he realizes he has his old, unimpressive look from middle school. Checking his phone, he discovers that the date is July 4th, 2005, exactly 12 years ago. He goes to a restaurant with his friends, where they all order burgers. However, Takemichi only gets a serving of fries, as he needs to save money for the train. His friends express their happiness about Takemichi's cousin, Masaru, being the leader of Shibuya 3rd Middle School. They explain that if they ever run into trouble with third-year students, they can use Masaru's name to intimidate them. Takemichi is confused about what they mean, and Makoto clarifies that they're planning to fight the second-year students from Shibuya 3rd Middle School due to some issues they have with them. On the way to Shibuya, Takemichi starts recalling the actual events from the past. He remembers that they indeed went to fight the second-year students, but he becomes scared because he hasn't been in a fight for 10 years. When they arrive in Shibuya, they try to talk to people to find the second-year students, but it seems like the second years are avoiding them. Takemichi begins to remember the events more clearly when some third-year students led by Masataka Kiyomizu appear. Masataka mentions that they're looking for their second-year counterparts, but it turns out that all the second years are on a school trip. Yamagishi claims they talked with their boss, Masaru, which amuses one of the third-year students who scoffs and calls Masaru. The third-year student orders Masaru to go and buy them drinks using his own money. As Masaru obediently goes to buy drinks for the third-year students, Takemichi recalls that Masaru was actually their errand boy and had falsely claimed to be the leader to impress him. The situation takes a dark turn as he and his friends are beaten up and informed that they will now become soldiers in the Tokyo Manji gang. Takemichi remembers how their nightmare began and the reason he left town after graduation. Haunted by memories of Hinata, he leaves his friends while walking home and goes to her place, struggling to remember her appearance. When Hinata sees him beaten up, Takemichi bursts into tears upon seeing her, confessing that he only wanted to see her again. Takemichi eventually leaves, still crying, and finds solace on a set of swings. Nearby, he overhears some guys harassing a younger kid and becomes infuriated. He intervenes by punching one of the harassers, then takes and breaks a bottle to warn them. He declares that he's in a bad mood and threatens to kill them if they don't leave, which causes the guys to apologize and quickly depart. Grateful for his help, the younger boy thanks Takemichi, who offers him advice to be more confident and not back down when facing bullies. He encourages the boy to stand up for himself, as this will deter those who only act tough. The kid introduces himself as Naoto Tachibana, and this revelation startles Takemichi because Naoto is Hinata's younger brother. Takemichi inquires about Naoto's feelings for his sister. Naoto blushes and claims he doesn't love her because she bosses him around. In response, Takemichi advises Naoto to take good care of his sister and confesses that he loves her. Takemichi reveals that he traveled back in time and is currently in the past, 12 years before. He explains that on July 1st, 2017, both Hinata and Naoto will die, and he implores Naoto to remember that date so he can protect his sister when the time comes. Takemichi is bewildered as he wakes up in the infirmary at the train station, finding it's July 4th, 2017. He initially assumes that what happened was just a dream, but he can't explain how he survived the train incident without a scratch. To his surprise, the one who saved his life suddenly appears. The man introduces himself as Naoto, and he reveals that Takemichi has altered his fate through some mysterious means, and that he has experienced time travel. Thanks to the information Takemichi provided in the past, Naoto was able to save him. Naoto discloses that he worked diligently and became a police officer, but was still unable to protect his sister, who tragically died. He pleads with Takemichi to help him save his sister, Hinata. After their initial conversation, Takemichi Hanagaki agrees to help Naoto Tachibana save his sister from a tragic fate in the future. Naoto explains his unique ability to time travel, allowing him to jump back to the exact same day, but 12 years in the past. He reveals the extensive knowledge he's gathered about the Tokyo Manji gang and urges Takemichi to remember it all, as some of the information is not publicly available. This confidential data was collected by his predecessor, an undercover investigator who was brutally killed in the line of duty. The horrifying recording of his death was found in his eye socket. Naoto's determination to change the course of events is evident through his continuous request for transfers, leading him to inherit his predecessor's position 6 months ago. As Takemichi can't go back on any date he wants, Naoto tells him that when he gets back 12 years ago, he needs to meet the Tokyo Manji gang top 2 members, Manjiro Sano and Teta Kisaki. Naoto states that if those two never met, the current Tokyo Manji gang would never exist, and his sister wouldn't have to die. Takemichi wonders how he will go, and Naoto mentions that Takemichi told him he went back in present after handshaking Naoto, and he believes that's the trigger. Naoto informs Takemichi that Manjiro and Teta met in August, and he must stay close to one of them and prevent them from meeting. They shake hands, and Takemichi time travels 12 years ago. Takemichi opens his eyes and sees he is in a fight where people had bet on who would win. Takemichi is shocked of where he is and checks his phone to confirm he returned back in time. As he does, his opponent punches and knocks him out. Later, Takemichi wakes up, and Masataka Kiyomizu's gang is annoyed that he went down only after 1 punch, as they are running a fight club, and they may decide to stop coming and betting if there are such fights. Masataka tells his men to teach Takemichi a lesson, and they start beating him up. Takemichi recalls the fight club, and that he was Masataka's slave, which was eventually the reason he ran away, leaving his friends and Hinata behind. As Masataka and his men left, Takemichi couldn't help but wonder if they had any connection to the Tokyo Manji gang. This infuriated Masataka, who grabbed a bat and began ruthlessly beating Takemichi. His comrades intervened, realizing the severity of the situation, and managed to prevent Masataka from killing Takemichi. Frightened and feeling hopeless, Takemichi decided to return to Naoto and initiate another time jump. However, he encountered Hinata on the way, who expressed concern about his injuries and wished she could have protected him if she were a boy. In response, Takemichi vowed to protect her, accidentally calling her Hina, which brought a blush to her face. After parting ways with Hinata, he grappled with the realization that he wasn't obliged to save her, given their lack of contact in the present, but witnessing her alive and well in the past was motivation enough to prevent her tragic fate. The following day, Takemichi's friends convened in the bathroom to discuss their predicament. The Fight Club battles were escalating into a daily ordeal, and Atsushi Sendo revealed that Takuya Yamamoto was scheduled to fight that day. Takemichi remembered that Takuya was particularly fragile and had come close to death in previous fights. Although the group had concerns, they found it impossible to oppose Masataka's decisions. Observing his friends' unwavering support for each other, Takemichi realized the depth of their camaraderie and understood just how admirable they were. As the fight between Kojima from Sakura Middle School and Takuya from Mizo Middle School was about to commence, the odds were in Kojima's favor, at 6-4. Masataka signaled the start of the fight, but Takemichi decided to intervene. He expressed his boredom with the repetitive and uninspiring matches that took place daily, yearning for something more exciting, such as a duel between a king and a slave. With this in mind, he approached Masataka and challenged him to a fight. Realizing that remaining a slave won't help him save Hinata, Takemichi decides to challenge Masataka. Masataka accepts the challenge, and the first blow he delivers demonstrates the vast power difference between them. Despite being severely beaten, Takemichi refuses to give up. Atsushi, one of his friends, takes out a knife with the intention of attacking Masataka. However, he notices that the crowd has turned against Masataka. As Takemichi continues to endure a brutal beating, he reflects on his past weakness and apologizes to his friends for it. Atsushi decides not to use the knife and encourages Takemichi to surrender, as he has already shown his strength. But Takemichi, driven by a deep personal reason, refuses to give up. He tells Masataka that if he wants to win, he'll have to kill him because he won't back down. Surprisingly, Masataka asks for his baseball bat, catching the crowd off guard as they expected a simple fistfight. Suddenly, Ken Riguji, the vice commander of the Tokyo Manji gang, intervenes and tells Masataka to calm down, as he's frightening the crowd. Behind Ken, Manjiro Sano, the commander of the Tokyo Manji gang, casually remarks that he's run out of dorayaki. While Takemichi's friends wonder who he is, the rest of the delinquents bow and greet Manjiro. Ken explains that Manjiro doesn't talk to people he's not interested in. After greeting Manjiro, Masataka is kicked in the stomach by Ken, who orders him to show more respect to Manjiro. Manjiro approaches Takemichi, asking for his name, but he humorously mispronounces it as Takemichi and questions if he's really a middle school student. Manjiro then declares Takemichi his friend, much to Takemichi's surprise. Manjiro turns his attention to Masataka, inquiring if he's running the fights. When Masataka confirms, Manjiro kicks him in the face and proceeds to beat him up. He then criticizes the fight club as lame and decides to leave. Ken instructs Masataka not to tarnish the reputation of the Tokyo Manji gang. Takemichi's friends are thrilled that he appears to have made friends with Manjiro, but Takemichi is worried about going from being a slave to Masataka to being at the mercy of a monster like Manjiro. Atsushi reveals that he had planned to stab Masataka and believes that thanks to Takemichi, they are no longer slaves. The next day, Takemichi encounters Hinata, who invites him to go on a date before her cram school. In class, he contemplates how to prevent Manjiro and Teta from meeting. He hears a commotion in the corridors and witnesses Manjiro entering his classroom, asking him to come out and play. He steps out of the classroom and sees a group of third-year students who have been beaten by Manjiro. Ken explains that they angered Manjiro, resulting in their beating. Ken then orders them to lie on their stomachs while he and Manjiro walk over them. Manjiro wants Takemichi to hang out with their group, but Takemichi claims to be busy. As they try to persuade him, Hinata misinterprets the situation, thinking they are bullying Takemichi, and slaps Manjiro. She takes Takemichi's hand and attempts to leave. Hinata insists that true friends wouldn't take someone by force, and that if they are responsible for Takemichi getting beaten up, she will put a stop to it, but Ken stops them. Takemichi places his hand on Ken and insists they release Hinata, vowing not to give up on certain things ever again. Manjiro jokingly threatens to punch Takemichi and asks how he wants to die. Takemichi requests a promise that they won't harm Hinata. Manjiro responds that he doesn't care and reaches for a punch but stops and claims it's a joke, stating that he would never hit a girl. Ken comments on how Takemichi stood up for a girl, showing old school values. After learning that they are friends, Hinata apologizes to Manjiro, who forgives her and advises her not to push herself too hard. She suggests that Takemichi go with his friends, and they can plan a date for another time. While riding bikes with Manjiro and Ken, Takemichi recalls the negative things Naoto told him about the Tokyo Manji gang's actions in the future. He wonders if Manjiro, who appears kind, is truly the head of such an evil gang. Takemichi asks Manjiro why he likes him, and Manjiro explains that he had an older brother, 10 years his senior, who was reckless, picking fights with much stronger people. Takemichi reminded him of his late brother. Manjiro shares that delinquents are perceived as lame these days, but during his brother's time, there were many biker gangs who acted tough, fought all the time, and took responsibility for their actions, which he doesn't find lame. Manjiro aims to usher in a new era for delinquents and invites Takemichi to join him. Ken acknowledges that there are plenty of good fighters, but not many people who stand up for something they won't give up. While walking home, Takemichi thinks that Manjiro isn't the guy that would kill someone like Hinata, and wonders what could have happened to change the Tokyo Manji gang. As he walks, he passes a group of guys and feels he'd seen one of them before.